Cars Live.
Coast to coast, direct from Austin. You're listening to the Alex Jones Broadcasting Network.
I have sworn upon the altar of God eternal hostility against every form of tyranny over the mind of man. Thomas Jefferson. It's Alex Jones on the GCN Radio Network.
Welcome everyone out there listening to my voice. This is the Alex Jones Show. We're going to be here live for the next 2 hours till 4 p.m. Central. You can catch us every day during the week, 11 a.m. to 2 p.m. Central. And it's the Alex Jones Show. I'm your host, Rob Dew, and we've got quite a show for you. Next segment, we're going to have Paul Watson coming in through Skype, the magic of Skype, from across the river. We're going to be talking about Ebola. I have a whole plethora of information on Ebola that we're going to be covering, from the government's preparation that they're not telling you about to the fact that they've known this thing can be airborne. And for at least 25 years, they've known this. And we're going to go over all that coming up. We've got quite a show for you. We're going to be covering the latest ISIS news. If you don't know, ISIS has released a third professional quality beheading video. This guy is a Brit. We're going to be covering that and what it means. They've released tons of videos before of them capturing Syrians and Iraqis and cutting their heads off and decapitating them. But these videos that really don't show any of the brutal carnage of it seem to really hit home with the American public and the government. There's the article today on Infowars.com. There's yesterday. Video, ISIS reportedly beheads a British aid worker. And then they bring up another one saying they're going to do him next. In Ebola news, we have 4 doctors now in the United States two have recovered. One's in Atlanta, one's up in Nebraska. So they're importing this stuff everywhere, just as Alex Jones predicted. They're going to be importing Ebola all into the United States, and they're literally flushing the waste down the toilet into the public sewer system. We're going to be going over that. In addition to ISIS, we've got a little bit of NFL news I might cover. We've got both sides of the aisle coming back with ISIS saying, we got to attack, we got to attack. So this is both sides ramping up for war. You've got it in Britain. People who were normally for individual sovereignty and freedom, people like Nigel Farage, are now saying we have to give up our liberty for security. And that's going to be the call as we march towards this global New World Order. Like I said, I'm Rob Dew. This is my first time to be hosting the show like this. I'm very honored to be doing it. Just a quick bio about myself. I've always been a person that's liked to look behind the curtain. And back when I was in college, I picked up these 2 books here. One's None Dare Call It Conspiracy by Gary Allen. And the other one is Who Runs Congress? And that was from the Ralph Nader Congress Project. Both books were instrumental in my waking up to what's really going on, not the left-right paradigm that most people are caught in, but to the global crime syndicate and how it operates here in America and how it operates worldwide. It's not just here that it's operating. It's going all over the place. We're going to have quite a show for you today. Like I said, Paul Watson's going to be coming up in the next hour. And if anybody knows about Ebola and where it's going, it's Paul Watson. He's been on this since the beginning. We've been writing articles about Ebola for a long time here at Infowars.com, trying to show the progression of this. And one thing I want to go to here in a second is this video model that has been coming out. It came out on the 10th of September. There's a video model showing how it would spread, and now they're saying it's going to kill about 5 million people. Well, in this model, and you guys can bring it up anytime, if you're watching on Prison Planet TV, you can see it. It starts in Africa. When it comes over to to our hemisphere, it starts in Cuba. And it's interesting that Cuba has just sent a bunch of doctors to go help. And then it moves into Florida and then into the United States through Miami. So that's very interesting how this model took into account all this stuff. And it's really looking at, it's pretty scary how this stuff is all going to spread. And we're going to be right back. 1 minute break. I'm your host, Rob Dew. We're going to be back with Paul Joseph Watson talking about Ebola and a whole host of issues that you should be concerned about. So call your friends, get ready, strap yourselves in. It's going to be 2 more hours. We'll be right back. in England. It's Paul Joseph Watson, writer of PrisonPlanet.com, Infowars.com, and somewhat of a video star now. He is making his own videos, putting them out there, putting the information out there. And let me tell you, if the future is, if I can gain anything from watching my children, they love to watch little videos on YouTube. That is the way we're going to wake up a lot of people. And my kids bring me stuff all the time and show it to me, because once you've implanted the seeds of freedom and liberty, there's no stopping it. And that's all we have to do is plant a seed. That's our job here, and that's what we do here. Paul, how are you doing today?
Good, Rob. Good to be on the air with you today.
All right. Well, let's get right into Ebola. We've got 4 doctors now killed in Sierra Leone. We've got 4 doctors that we brought here into the United States. Where's all this going?
Well, it's going towards hopefully answering the question which I've had since the very beginning when this started and when I started writing articles and making videos about it, which is, why are all these health workers being infected with Ebola? Of course, we're told that this strain, which is a new strain of the virus, can only be contracted by exchanging bodily fluids. So the health workers actually touching the bodily fluids of the Ebola victims. Now, you've seen the hazmat suits that they wear, the precautions that they take. Obviously, they go to extreme measures to prevent that from happening. Not just the doctors in Africa, but the American doctors who have taken the same precautions and still caught the virus. So now the WHO, for example, reports today, or a couple of days ago, unprecedented number of medical staff infected with Ebola. The outbreak of Ebola virus disease in West Africa is unprecedented in many ways, including the high proportion of doctors, nurses, and other health workers who have been infected. So 240 health workers in these West African countries, Guinea, Liberia, Nigeria, Sierra Leone, have been infected with Ebola, and more than 120 have died. So again, this raises the question, if they're taking all these precautions to prevent the exchange of bodily fluid to catch the virus, then why are they contracting Ebola? Unless this new strain of Ebola may, at least to a limited extent, have gone airborne, because we know the 2012 study, which we cited many times from Canada, they took pigs who were infected with Ebola, put them in a pen with monkeys that was separated by a wire fence, so no direct contact between the 2 species. And basically what happened, most of the monkeys contracted Ebola via the respiratory system and died from it, and that was back in 2012. So they proved back then that Ebola had gone airborne between these 2 species, at least to a limited degree. So now, as far back as 6 weeks ago, we were asking the same question. We were called conspiracy theorists for doing so. I appeared on CBS radio with Dick Morris on August 6th last month. And then a couple of days after that, CBS local news came out with a story saying, conspiracy theorist claims Ebola may be airborne, which is interesting because as of 2 days ago, Michael Osterholm, who is director of the Center for Infectious Disease Research and Policy at the University of Minnesota, wrote this big op-ed in the New York Times in which he said that basically health workers and experts are loath to consider, they fear even considering the fact that, quote, Ebola virus could mutate to become transmissible through the air. So now, 6 weeks after we first talked about it, we're getting top experts saying the same thing. We were called conspiracy theorists at the time for saying this. Now, top experts, doctors, medical professionals are starting to ask the same question, which is, has this new strain of Ebola gone airborne? Because it's unprecedented in the amount of people that it has infected. In fact, Michael Osterholm said that, quote, the current Ebola virus's hyper-evolution is unprecedented. There has been more human-to-human transmission in the past 4 months than likely occurred in the last 500 to 1,000 years. Each new infection represents trillions of throws of the genetic dice. So this is completely unprecedented, which is why we're asking the question, has it gone airborne, at least to a limited extent?
Well, Paul, before you go any farther, we've got a video clip that I found over the weekend, one of our excellent tipsters. And we got so many tipsters out there that just send us tip after tip after tip. This one is from a NOVA program that aired in the mid-90s, but it talks about an incident that happened in 1989 here in Virginia, and it's between air transmission of Ebola between monkeys. And you guys got that clip? Let's roll it.
In 1989, Ebola made its way to the U.S. Residents of this Washington, D.C. suburb had no idea that one of the world's deadliest viruses had emerged in their midst. In a primate quarantine unit in Reston, Virginia, monkeys in one of the holding rooms suddenly began to die. Secretly, a military team entered the quarantine unit and killed all 60 monkeys in the infected room. The crisis heightened as monkeys began to die in a different room. It appeared that the virus was moving through the ventilating system. In response, the military killed all 400 monkeys, ending the outbreak. This new strain of Ebola had shown the potential to spread through the air. Had it been lethal in humans, it could have been catastrophic.
There you go, Paul. So this has been on the radar since 1989, at least with the military, secretly, because no one else knew about it. I mean, what do you have to say about that?
Well, that's amazing, of course, because, I mean, we had the Canadian study, but that was only from 2 years ago. So to hear that it's, you know, at least one strain between two species of monkeys has been airborne since 1989 is, again, is shocking. And this is what I've said over and over again. You know, I can talk about this till I'm blue in the face. I'm just a journalist. I'm just writing about it. I'm not an expert on it. We need actual experts and infectious disease specialists to be looking into this possibility, because it seems like it could be a good explanation for the aggressiveness of how this virus has spread. But as Osterholm said in the New York Times the other day, they're kind of scared of yelling fire in a crowded theater because they think that it's gonna cause hysteria and mass panic, which is interesting because, you know, the pharmaceutical industry normally loves hysteria and mass panic because it sells drugs and it sells vaccines, which is what we saw in 2009 with the swine flu outbreak, which was very different, of course, because they already had the vaccine lined up and they created a huge, huge scare. I mean, at the time that there was talk of troops on the streets and martial law, and this was in the newspapers every day, and they had the vaccine lined up. Probably millions of people globally took the vaccine, which was completely unnecessary. Swine flu was only really a danger to sick people, young people, and the elderly. So the majority of the global population was under no risk whatsoever. But they sold this drug in huge quantities, and it was engendered off the back of hysteria created by